everyone, so today's video is going to talk you through the final stave of A Christmas Carol. We've already read through it and you've already picked out the key quotations, so the purpose of the video is just to get you getting your notes caught up. So we begin on page 146. Now just a reminder that I use a black pen for the general notes and then a red pen to put key points about what's happening. You should have been doing the same with a different colour pen throughout the book. So that's what I'll be doing with the red pen. So for here, we've got Scrooge wakes up. Now I can't remember if we highlighted this quotation, but we're going to need to. There's a couple of quotations on here which are on the knowledge organiser. Other than that, we have done them all. So these two quotations will be orange because they're showing the change in Scrooge. So we've got the time before him was his own to make amends in. And he was so fluttered and so glowing with his good intentions. Okay, so we'll just start with these two and make a couple of notes. Now, the picture for this one on the knowledge organiser is a clock. That's my really complicated clock there. And the picture for this one on the knowledge organiser is a butterfly. I'm pretty sure it's sideways, but never mind, because of the verb fluttered. So, and we're going to start here with the time before him was his own to make amends in. Now, what this tells us is that Scrooge realises it's not too late to change. Now also, throughout the rest of the book, time has been controlled by the ghosts, by the supernatural. So also, supernatural no longer controls time. It's that sense of like ownership over time, and to make amends is to kind of fix things that you've done. We look now to this quotation, which is where Scrooge is, excited and happy and pleased, and he's fluttered and glowing. So the point of these quotations, or this kind of being a key quotation, is it juxtaposes Scrooge in stave 1. Now, I'm sure you all can figure out that we would never have called Scrooge someone who fluttered. But it's all to do with his excitement. And how pleased he is. And if we look at glowing, glowing's quite interesting, because it's something we might associate with heat or warmth or light. So again, juxtaposes how Scrooge at the start is frosty, blue, cold, etc. Okay, so you need to pause there if you've missed any of that to copy it up. And we go on to this next page. So this is page 147. Now we already made all these notes in the lesson. I'll leave it there. You need to freeze though if you didn't manage to get those, if the visualizer wasn't very good. Okay, now here we have a description of the weather where Scrooge, when Scrooge wakes up. And we just want to mention Dickens' use of pathetic fallacy. So remember, pathetic fallacy is when the weather reflects the mood, okay? So it's bright and warm, reflects the change in Scrooge. Now what we can also talk about is how Christmas Eve at the start of the book was very foggy. Stave 1 equals fog. And now it's described as no fog, no mist, it's clear. So we could say that the weather is kind of a metaphor for Scrooge and his mind, because at the start his kind of vision, the way he sees the world, is unclear and foggy, and it's kind of almost like clouded, isn't it, by the bad things that have happened to him. But now with the help of the ghosts, it's all clear and bright. So it's just an interesting emphasis there from Dickens on the weather. Okay, then next Scrooge realises it's Christmas Day, and what he does here is sends the boy for the turkey. So we'll do that in red. Just under where we've done that green quotation. Okay. Now this bit here is where Scrooge realises that everything that all the events he's been through have happened in one night. Now if you remember, Jacob Marley originally tells him that the ghosts will visit him across 3 nights. And at this point, he realises that they've actually all done it in one night. Now this is interesting because he says they can do anything they like. So Scrooge's view on the ghosts has changed. We'll put on the supernatural. Because if you remember at the start, so we've put Stave 1, he was resistant to listen to Marley or meet the ghosts. Remember, he just says, I'd rather go to sleep. But now, in Stave 5, he recognises and kind of understands the power that they have. As he basically says, they can do anything they like. So they can control time, they can control definitely his mind and how he sees things. So that's an interesting quotation to think about the change in Scrooge. Here we have a reference to money, because Scrooge sends this little boy to go and get the this prize turkey, and he wants to be really clear that he wants the biggest possible turkey. Remember, he's going to send it to the Cratchits. So we just put a note here, Scrooge is now generous, not afraid to spend money. So he could have just sent them any turkey, because remember, they don't even have a turkey for Christmas, they have a goose. But he wants to send them the biggest possible turkey to to show how much he cares. Well, although they don't know it's him, to show. And Dickens is just showing us how generous Scrooge now is and how he isn't worried about being so avaricious. He is much more philanthropic. And again, this is quite interesting, I think, because all this boy's doing is going to order the turkey for him, and he offers him quite a fair bit of money. He's going to give him a shilling to begin with, which is, well, Bob would earn as a clerk in his business, earns 15 shillings a week. So that's a lot for this boy. And then he basically says, if you come back quickly, I'll give you half a crown. So again, it's similar to the last note, really. Now, I think this moment here juxtaposes, if we're always looking in Stave 5 with how it relates back to Scrooge in Stave 1, because they kind of mirror each other, and the similar people are shown, and the way he engages with them is shown. So if you think Stave 1, it goes charity collectors, Fred, and then we get a bit more of his relationship with Bob, and it's the same thing really in Stave 5. But if you think about this, in Stave 1 there was that young boy who sings at the door, and Scrooge kind of almost threatens him. So I'm putting Stave 1, violence against child. Stave 5, kindness and laughter. So he's laughing with this boy, he's offering him a good reward for helping him, and he's showing kindness towards him. Okay, we're now looking at this part here. Now this is really important, I think, because Scrooge Scrooge's generosity is anonymous, right? So he doesn't take credit for what he does, and this shows us that he's giving this away. He's bought the turkey for the Cratchits for the right reasons, not because he wants people to know so that when he dies they care about him. It's because he's become a caring individual and he wants them to have more in life than they currently have. So because you could argue, well, he's only doing all this so that people care when he dies, which obviously is not the case. Now, Scrooge begins to use Merry Christmas quite a lot in this stave. So stave 1 refuses any connection with, I'm just going to put Xmas for space, and then stave 2 wishes everyone Merry Christmas, enjoys saying it to complete strangers in a second. So there's a real sense of change with Scrooge. So that's page 150. Onto this section here. Now, hopefully you can remember back to stave 3, where we visit Fred's Christmas. And there's a real focus on Fred's laughter. And the thing that Dickens is saying is that Fred's laughter is infectious, so it spreads. And it causes other people to laugh. So one person, the idea is that one person being happy and laughing, that can kind of spread on to others. And that's the idea now in this stave, with Scrooge suddenly laughing a lot and chuckling a lot. It's used throughout the whole stave, is that by him being happy and laughing, he's able to spread that with others. So again, there's this sense of like generous rich, the generous rich, and a benevolent capitalist. So somebody who has money, and that's okay for them to have money, but it's about them doing the right thing with that money and spreading it in a kind way. But there's a sense that they have to do that with happiness as well, and their kindness, not just their money. Bottom of page 152. Again, there's a sense of anonymity with this. So Scrooge doesn't shout or even say out loud how much he will donate. Now, this is what's taking him from a misanthrope, someone who disliked humanity, to somebody with philanthropy. So let's go misanthropy to philanthropy. Those are the noun versions. You could look up philanthropy or philanthropic. It's somebody who's charitable and cares enough about others that they're willing to kind of share with others. You would say like a celebrity who gives a lot of money to charity or time to charity is philanthropic. This is the point with what he does in this stave. It's not about doing things and shouting about them. It's about doing them because they're right. And here, this shows you how much money Scrooge has and how he's willing to share it. So he's now willing to share with those in poverty. But it's not just paying what he owes for now. He's also paying for his past avarice or greed. So he's saying a great many back payments. So all the money that I've owed you in the past, I haven't I'm gonna now pay it up. Come and see me. This is interesting for responsibility because it's showing how Scrooge is taking responsibility. So for his past, because he isn't just saying this to this man in the street to make it look good. He's actually really desperate for him to come and see him. So that use of imperative verb, come and see me, and then the rhetorical question, it's like showing that Scrooge is desperate to kind of make this change and be a better person. So pause there if you need that bit. That's 153. Nothing on 154, so we go to 155, and this is where Scrooge spends time with Fred for Christmas. So let's just make a note of here. So down at the bottom of 153, goes to Fred's house. Oh, that went off the edge. And then we'll just put a note in red at the bottom of 152. Gives money to charity collectors. So these are kind of the key events. And think about how this stave mirrors stave 1 in lots of ways with this kind of similar series of events. Although it's technically the next day, but how Scrooge is extremely different in them. Now this is a great kind of paragraph. We're not going to write anything about it, but I think it's just a really interesting one to show Scrooge's true redemption. So how different he is around people, and how he speaks to everyone, and everything brings him happiness. So we'll just put an orange box around it. Okay, back to this one, 155. I always think this is a lovely quotation. So he was at home in 5 minutes. So there's a sense that Scrooge belongs at Fred's Christmas. And we kind of know that already because of how he was in Stave 3, when he was desperate to kind of stay and he begged like a child to stay, if you remember that quotation. And I think that's really important, that he feels at home. So he's definitely welcomed by Fred and his wife and friends. And there's a sense, I guess, that Dickens is trying to encourage us to think if only he'd had, you know, all these years of going and spending it with Fred for Christmas. So that it's not too late that he's changed now. And this bit here, oh, sorry, not the camera. So we've got repetition of the adjective wonderful. Now this just emphasises the joy that Scrooge has at Christmas. And we knew he was going to feel like this because it's in Stave 3 when he wants to be there. And this is the exact Christmas where he wanted to be there. So reference to the party and the games and the happiness is all things that Scrooge experienced the first time around, but he wasn't there. He wanted to be in the room. So next we are on the day after Christmas, so Boxing Day. And essentially Bob is late to begin with. Now Scrooge plays a trick on Bob, which I think if I was Bob probably I wouldn't find very funny, which is where he kind of threatens him and tells him off for being late. And then this point here, 156, raises Bob's salary. And offers continued, so that's what's coming up on the next page, continued support. Now, what I think is important about him raising Bob's salary is he isn't saying I'm going to give you a load of money that's not going to last. It's like an ongoing promise to support them. And what it also is a recognition that he isn't giving Bob what he fully deserves. Recognises he doesn't fully value Bob. in more ways than one, but in particular as an employee at this point. So he doesn't pay him enough to live off, and that's an issue. Now, this point here is interesting because it shows that Scrooge is quite genuine in what he's saying. And this is showing his social responsibility. So his responsibility towards those in a position poorer than him. And this is what Dickens is really kind of trying to hammer home the message of. That people like Scrooge, they don't necessarily have to be socialists. They can have their money, but they've got to be wise with it, and they've got to care about those who have nothing. And that's their social responsibility. And remember, socialism wasn't around in Dickens' time yet, so capitalism was. So, a Merry Christmas, Bob, my God, for giving you for many a year. So, remember at the start, he threatens Bob to lose his job if when he claps Fred's speech about Christmas. So this definitely shows a big change in Scrooge. But also he recognises how he has not properly shared Christmas with Bob for a long time. And he's saying, sorry, it's almost like an apology. This is a Christmas I've given you. First time I've given you a proper Merry Christmas for many years. So repetition of raising his salary, I don't think we need to mention this. Now he says he's going to try to assist his struggling family. So this is all about his, again, social responsibility, but it's important because it's showing that Scrooge is now aware of more than what's in front of him. So at the start it talks about him walking along the edge of the crowded paths of life, because he doesn't want to see anything beyond the kind of narrow limits of his house, or narrow limits of his counting house, I think is used. And now this is showing that Scrooge has awareness, or has an awareness of beyond his work and beyond his wealth. It's actually, I've just realised it's Jacob Marley who says, "My spirit never roved beyond the narrow limits of our counting house." So Jacob Marley saying, this is something I did wrong. I wasn't responsible to others. And this is Scrooge saying that he will be responsible and he will help the family. Now, obviously, we talked about this in the lesson, so this is a really big kind of sign from Dickens that Scrooge has changed, that he's redeemed himself. So, Stave 1, he gives Bob 1 coal, and no coal box. So he has no access to the coal box because it's kept in his office. And now we get the sense that in Stave 5, he's encouraging him to light the fire, and he's going to give him access to coal because of that renewed sense of trust and generosity. Now, there's quite a few things going on here. So I'll make a note down here of repetition of laughed, but I'm not going to say much more on that because it links to the chuckle of earlier spreads. And it obviously lasts a long time. And we've got the personification of his heart laughed, which shows that kind of every emotion within Scrooge has become positive. Even his own heart is laughing. Okay, so kind of a form of hyperbole, exaggeration, really. So a couple of notes there about laughed, but I want to go back up here and just look at a couple of these things. So we need to look at the metaphor of second father, that's quite important. And then we need to look at this repetition, or anaphora, actually, of as good a friend, as good a master. Okay? So we'll just start with the metaphor of second father. Now this is quite important because it shows us how much, and switch colour pens, that one seems to be faded. It shows us how much Scrooge changes in the future, because a father's role is not only to do with money, but also love also love, time, and he becomes maybe like a role model. So it tells you how much of his life Scrooge has left and how much of a contribution he gives to the Cratchits, and in particular Tiny Tim. We get the sense that seeing Tiny Tim die, seeing Tiny Tim's behaviour has a profound effect on Scrooge, so much so that he really stays true to his word. And then we've got the anaphora of as good a man, as good a friend, as good. And the point that Dickens is making here is that Scrooge doesn't just become better. He isn't just... Oh, I've just gone off the page. Isn't just better. He's one of the best. And what I mean by that is Dickens is saying he doesn't just stay true to his word and, you know, be a bit nicer and give a bit more money. He's literally one of the best people in the world. Again, hyperbole. So he's as good a friend, a good a master, and as good a man as the good old city knew, or any good of a city, town or borough in the good old world. So it's almost like one of the best men, people, friends that anyone could have. So Scrooge hasn't just slightly changed, he's absolutely transformed. Okay, I'm going to zoom out a sec because there's a lot on that page. And you're probably going to want to pause it. So pause there if you need the top. Pause there if you need the bottom, and you might have already done it anyway. And on to the final page. There's two key quotations here. So the first one is this one here, which is one of the key ones on the knowledge organiser. Now this is actually said, as it says, Tiny Tim observed, by Tiny Tim in Stave 3 when they see it, and he basically he kind of prays for the Christmas dinner, and he says, God bless us everyone. So the point of this, the reason this is important, is it's a message of equality. So he's not saying God bless my family, it's God bless us everyone. And it brings up the Christian values which are also reflected in Christmas. And in particular, perhaps Dickens is reminding us of the Christian value of forgiveness at this point for someone like Scrooge. And obviously other Christian values that are kind of important to the novel that are observed by Tiny Tim. But I think it's also interesting that this is repetition of Tiny Tim's words when the book is all about Scrooge. We could argue maybe that Dickens makes Tim kind of almost as much the hero of the book as Scrooge. And then we can probably argue that Tiny Tim is kind of almost like a catalyst character in that he makes the biggest impact, or he is the biggest cause of Scrooge's change, and then that's why the emphasis is placed on him towards the end with the second father and then this bit here. So it's quite an interesting quotation, but it obviously is one of equality, right? And that is what Tiny Tim embodies, and also he is poor but he shows strength, because he talks about, you know, how he doesn't mind if people see him as a cripple because it will remind them that, you know, Jesus can perform miracles and heal cripples. And I think that's kind of important, that he shows that generosity and that kindness despite the hardships that he faces. And obviously that's a lesson for Scrooge to learn as well. Now, it was always said of him that he knew how to keep Christmas well. So again, Scrooge's attitude to Christmas juxtaposes... is another one that juxtaposes Stave 1, when he talks about kind of like burying people who say Merry Christmas. So he shows maybe violence or anger towards Christmas and those who celebrate it. And now we get the sense that he's one of the best people at Christmas time. Now, if you go back to Bob's speech in Stave 1, which I'm going to refer you to now, quickly, this shows the kind of list of, not shows the list, but Fred's speech, gives a list of kind of the values of Christmas. So charitable, forgiving, pleasant time. It's a time of, he gives some other, here it is, oh, no, not that bit there. Try and find it now, and obviously I can't find it. Open up their hearts freely, so equality, responsibility, and I think, I put Bob and I meant Fred. Soz, guys. Let's hope you haven't written that. Although, to be honest, Bob claps the speech. I don't know why I got confused. So, Fred's speech at the start shows the values of Christmas, which are things like being charitable, forgiving, I'm just going to squeeze them in here. Charitable, kind, forgiving. And the point is that Scrooge holds these values at all times. And he will remain like this permanently. So that is Stave 5 done. We'll be live in tomorrow's lesson, and we'll be doing a bit of an overview of A Christmas Carol, and I'll be showing you what the exam will look like. So see you then. Hopefully that was useful. If you missed anything, you can go back through and pause the video.